My supervisor called me at 7:12 a.m. She knew before my own mother did. That's the part that still gets me, even now. My mother's number was listed as my emergency contact on every form I'd ever filled out at that hospital. And when the ER nurse called her at 7:15 a.m. to say her daughter had been brought in by ambulance, my mother said she'd be there as soon as she could. My supervisor, Janet, didn't get an official call. She got a call from a coworker who'd seen the accident report on the local news. By 8:30, she was in the waiting room with 2 coffees and my insurance card, which she'd pulled from the HR file herself. Because she figured I'd need it, my mother didn't show up that day. I was 31 years old, lying in a hospital bed with a fractured pelvis, 2 broken ribs, and a lacerated spleen. And I found all of this out later because I was unconscious for most of the morning. When I finally came around, the first face I saw was a nurse named Deb, who had kind eyes and a firm voice, and who told me exactly what had happened to me without softening any of it, which I appreciated more than she probably knew. "You were hit by a truck running a red light," she said. "You're lucky to be here." I didn't feel lucky. I felt like someone had taken my body apart and put it back together wrong. She told me I'd need surgery on my spleen that evening. She told me the recovery would be significant. She asked if I had family coming. I said yes. I believed it when I said it. Janet came in around 9. She set the extra coffee on my tray table even though I couldn't drink it and said, "I called your mom. She said she and your dad are on their way." I nodded. The pain medication was making everything soft at the edges. "She also said to tell you that your brother's thing is this weekend. So they might be a little delayed, but they'll be here." My brother's thing. His name is Derek. He's 27, 4 years younger than me. And he has never once in his adult life paid his own rent. I have been making up the difference in one form or another since he was 22 and decided that a steady job was incompatible with his creative vision. His creative vision, as far as I could tell, was making short films that no one watched and attending networking events for people who called themselves artists but mostly just wanted someone else to fund their lifestyle. His thing that weekend was a screening. A short film he'd made with money I had given him. $12,000 I transferred over 6 months, in installments, every time he called with a new expense. Equipment rental, location fees, editing software, a composer for the score, color grading, whatever that meant. $12,000 that I'd pulled from the savings account I'd been building since I was 24. The account I'd told myself was for a house someday, for something real. The screening was at a rented venue in Portland. My parents had driven up from Sacramento 3 days earlier to help him set up and celebrate. They didn't come back for my surgery. I didn't know that yet. I still thought they were on their way. Deb came back in around noon to check my vitals and asked again if family was coming. I said yes. She looked at me the way people look at you when they know something you don't, and don't want to be the one to say it. The surgery was scheduled for 6 that evening. At 4, my phone rang. My mother. "Honey, how are you doing?" I told her. "Fractured pelvis, broken ribs, lacerated spleen. Surgery in 2 hours. I said the words slowly so they would land. "Oh, sweetheart." She made the sound she always makes, the one that's supposed to convey sympathy but lands more like impatience. "We're just so relieved you're okay." "I'm not really okay, Mom. I need surgery." "I know. But you're stable, right?" That's what the nurse said when I called. Stable means okay. It means I'm not dying right this second. It doesn't mean okay. Pause. The kind of pause where I could hear her deciding how to say the next thing. "Here's the thing," she said. "Derek's screening is tomorrow night. We drove all the way up here. We helped him set everything up. And if we leave now, we won't make it back for the event, and we won't be able to get there for your surgery either because of the drive. It's 12 hours, Emma. We'd be driving all night." I didn't correct her on the name. She does this sometimes, gets me confused with a cousin. I've stopped mentioning it. I have surgery in 2 hours, I said again. I know. But the doctors are there. You're in good hands. Derek really needs us at this screening. Do you know how hard he's worked on this film? He's been talking about it for 2 years. This could be a real turning point for him. A turning point. The phrase landed in my chest like something physical. I've worked hard too, I said. I work hard too, I said. I work hard every day. I'm the one who paid for his film, Mom. We know that and we appreciate it. Derek appreciates it. He mentioned you in his program notes. He thanked you. He thanked me in the program notes of the screening I funded while I was lying in a hospital bed with a broken pelvis. I'll call you right after surgery, I said. My voice had gone flat. I recognized the feeling. It was the same flatness I got every time I realized, again, that I had been stupid enough to be surprised. She said, "We'll be thinking of you. We'll come see you after. Once the screening is done, we'll drive straight down. We should be there by Sunday afternoon." Sunday was 3 days away. She said, "Derek sends his love." I hung up. Janet came back at 5 to sit with me before they wheeled me in. She didn't ask about my parents. She just sat there, and when they came for me, she walked alongside the gurney as far as they'd let her go, and she squeezed my hand and said, "I'll be here when you wake up." She was. My parents weren't. I woke up in recovery at 9:30 that night. Janet was asleep in the chair with her coat over her shoulders. My coworker Priya had sent flowers. My neighbor had texted to say she'd fed my cat. My parents had sent a message that said, "Surgery done?" So relieved. Derek's screening is tonight. It's going beautifully. He dedicated the film to the whole family. Photo attached. The photo was my parents in nice clothes holding glasses of wine, standing next to my brother who was grinning in a blazer I'd never seen before. The venue behind them looked expensive. It looked like somewhere I would have loved to go. I put my phone face down on the blanket. Day 2. My parents had promised to be there by Sunday afternoon. I waited, checked my phone. Called once, got voicemail. My brother posted the screening on Instagram, sold-out event, standing ovation, conversations with a distributor. He thanked his family for believing in him. He tagged our parents in 6 different posts. He did not tag me, though my money had paid for the projector they screened it on. At 2 in the afternoon, my mother texted. "Running a little behind. Might be tomorrow. Derek has a brunch with the distributor. Monday morning." Still no one. My father called. His voice was the particular tone he uses when he's decided he's being reasonable. "Your mother and I have been talking. Derek's meeting with the distributor went really well. There's a lot of momentum here and we want to be here to support him through it. You're stable, you're getting great care. And honestly, the timing works out because you probably need a few more days in the hospital before you can go home anyway. I need someone at home with me when I'm discharged," I said. "The doctor wants someone there for at least 2 weeks. I can't drive. I can barely walk. Can't one of your work friends help out? They have jobs, Dad." Well, Derek's future is really at a critical point right now. You of all people know how much he's sacrificed for this. What Derek had sacrificed, as far as I could tell, was a normal career. His own financial stability and several years of my savings. What I had sacrificed was harder to name because I'd been doing it so gradually for so long that I'd stopped noticing. I did the math once, a few months before the accident. I'd started keeping a spreadsheet that I saved under a folder called Tax Documents 2023 because I didn't want to look at it too often. The total, as of January, was $146,000. That was what I had given my family over the past 7 years. Some of it had gone to Derek directly, equipment, rent, the film. Some of it had gone to my parents, who always had reasons, medical bills, car repairs, a loan that was always going to be paid back. Some of it had disappeared into the general category of, "We really need you right now, and you've always been the responsible one." $146,000. I'd been making decent money since I was 24. Working in logistics management, working long hours, saying no to vacations and new furniture and any purchase that felt indulgent. And I had $146,000 to show for it in a spreadsheet I was afraid to look at. I hung up on my father. He called back. I let it go to voicemail. My hospital room had a window that looked out on a parking garage. Not much of a view, but I spent a lot of time looking at it because looking at the ceiling made me think too much. This was day 3. The nurse on my floor that night was a woman named Ren. She was maybe 60, efficient and quiet, and she had a way of moving through the room without making you feel like you were being managed. I liked her immediately. She came in around 10 to check on me. She looked at my face for a moment. "You doing okay?" she asked. And not in the way people ask when they don't actually want to know. "My parents are in Portland," I said. "My brother had a film screening." She nodded slowly. "They're coming," I said. "Eventually." She nodded slowly. "They're coming," I said. "Eventually." She nodded again, like she was filing this information away somewhere. She finished checking my chart and was almost at the door when she stopped. "I want to show you something," she said. "And I need you to know that technically I probably shouldn't. But I think you need to see it." She came back with a tablet. She pulled up footage from the hallway security camera outside my room. "Watch the timestamp," she said. "This is last night, 11:40. A woman in the hallway. Maybe 65, silver-haired, wearing a dark coat. She was carrying something, a paper bag. She stood outside my door for a long moment, not moving, just looking at the room number. Then she set the bag down against the wall and walked away. "She came back the night before that too," Ren said. "And the night I first came on shift, which was 2 nights ago. Same thing every time. Stands there, leaves something, asks how you're doing." "Who is she?" "She won't say. Just asks if you're comfortable, if you're eating. She knows your name. Last night she left a book. Night before that, a card. She always asks us not to tell you." I didn't understand. I knew the book on my tray table, a novel I'd assumed Janet had left. I knew the card that said simply, "You're going to be okay," in handwriting I didn't recognize. I knew the small container of homemade cookies, oatmeal chocolate chip, my exact favorite that I thought was from Priya. "She knows I like oatmeal chocolate chip," I said. Ren looked at me steadily. "She's been here every single night," she said. "Everyone. While whoever else hasn't been here." She left after that. I lay in the dark thinking about a woman I didn't know who had shown up 3 nights in a row to stand outside my door in the middle of the night and leave things she knew I liked and ask about me without leaving her name. Day 4. My parents had stopped giving new timelines. My mother texted to say Derek's distributor was seriously interested and they wanted to be there for the meetings. I read the text and put the phone down and didn't respond. That afternoon, Ren came in during her shift. "She's here," Ren said. "The woman." "Now?" "In the waiting room. She asked if you were awake." "I told her you were." "She said she didn't want to intrude." "She said." Ren paused. "She said she wasn't sure she had the right." "Send her in," I said. "I don't know why. I just said it. I don't know why. I just said it." I tried to sit up straighter. Wished I looked like less of a wreck. The door opened. She was exactly as she'd appeared on the camera. Silver hair, dark coat, careful eyes. She looked like someone who'd been practiced at making herself small, at taking up less space than she was entitled to. She stopped just inside the door. "Hi," she said. Her voice was quiet. "I'm sorry to come in like this. I know you don't know me." "I don't," I said. "But you've been here every night." She nodded. Something moved across her face. "My name is Ruth," she said. "I'm your mother's sister. Your aunt. We haven't spoken in a very long time." I stared at her. Your mother and I had a falling out, she said, when you were about 12 or 13. It was about you, actually. I told her I thought they were being unfair to you. That they were asking too much of you and giving Derek too much. She didn't want to hear it. They stopped letting me see you after that. I had a memory, vague and soft around the edges, of a woman who used to come to Thanksgiving, who used to slip me books and ask what I was reading, who smelled like cedar and had a laugh that filled up rooms. I had thought about her occasionally over the years and assumed she had just drifted away the way adults sometimes do. You didn't drift, I said. Ruth shook her head. I tried to reach you a few times when you were older. I thought maybe once you were an adult you could make your own choices. Your mother intercepted the messages. I didn't find out until later. She sat down in the chair next to my bed, slowly, like she was giving me time to tell her not to. I've kept track of you, she said. I hope that doesn't sound strange. I followed what I could from a distance. When you graduated, when you got the job. I knew about Derek's film because your mother posts everything on Facebook and we have mutual friends who still talk. When you heard about the accident, I said. I got in the car, she said simply. I live in Tucson. It's a 12-hour drive. I left the same night. The same night. 12 hours. While my parents, who were 4 hours away in Portland, had decided to stay for brunch with a distributor. Why didn't you come in? I asked. She was quiet for a moment. I didn't know if you'd want me to, she said. I don't have any right to walk into your life after all this time and expect you to know me. But I couldn't not come. I kept thinking, she's in there alone. And I know what it's like to be alone when you shouldn't have to be. I just wanted to make sure someone was there, even if you didn't know it. I started crying. It hurt my ribs. Ruth leaned forward and put her hand over mine on the blanket. They're not coming, are they? She said. It wasn't really a question. No, I said. She nodded like she had already known. I've watched this pattern for years, she said. From a distance. You give and they take, and nobody ever says out loud what's happening. I tried to say it once. It cost me my relationship with my sister. But I'd say it again. I've given them so much money, I said. I don't even know how to explain how much. You don't have to explain it to me, she said. I know how it happens. They make you feel like you're the capable one, the responsible one, the one who can handle it. And you believe them because you love them and because it's easier than seeing what's really going on. The capable one. I had heard that my entire life. You're so capable. You can handle it. Derek needs more support right now. You've always landed on your feet. I got $146,000 into a hole, I said, before I even understood I was in one. Ruth was quiet for a moment. I have something to tell you, she said. And I want you to know I'm telling you, because I think you're at a point where you can actually hear it. She opened her bag and took out a folder. When you were 18, she said, your parents told you that you didn't qualify for enough financial aid to attend the out-of-state school you'd gotten into. Do you remember? I remembered. I'd gotten into a school in New York that I'd wanted desperately and had been told there wasn't enough money, that the aid package wasn't sufficient, that I'd need to take out loans we couldn't afford. I'd ended up at a state school 2 hours from home, which was fine, which was good even, but I'd spent a long time quietly mourning the other thing. That wasn't accurate, Ruth said. I had spoken to your parents when you were a senior. I offered to set up a fund for your education. I wanted to give you that opportunity. We argued. They told me it wasn't my place, and then later I found out from a mutual family friend that they had told you there wasn't enough money. I stared at her. They used what I set aside, she said carefully. Or they made it impossible to access. I'm not entirely sure of all the details because I was cut off from the family by then, but what I know is that money existed and you didn't know about it and you made a different choice because of that. The room felt very still. I've been doing something since then, she said. I want to be clear that I'm not telling you this to make you feel obligated. I'm telling you because I think you deserve to know. She turned the folder around so I could see it. It was a financial statement. An account in my name that I had never known existed. I've been contributing to this since you were 18, she said. A little at a time, more when I could. I didn't know if I'd ever be in a position to give it to you. I didn't know if you'd ever want anything from me. The number at the bottom of the page was $219,000. I stopped breathing for a moment. That's mine? I said. It's always been yours, she said. Every dollar. I thought about the $146,000 I'd given away. I thought about the savings account I'd been building for a house, slowly, $500 at a time, whenever I could manage it. I thought about all the times I'd said yes, because it felt like there was no other option. There had always been another option. I just hadn't known she existed. I can't, I started. You can, she said. And you will. Not for me, for you, because you are going to get out of that hospital, and you are going to recover, and you are going to build a life that actually belongs to you. And this is going to make that possible. Day 5. Discharge day. Doctor. Kim came in early to go over everything. No driving for 8 weeks. No lifting. Limited mobility for 6 weeks minimum. She wanted me to have someone at home around the clock for at least the first 2 weeks. She asked who was taking me home. I looked at Ruth, who had spent the night in the recliner in the corner of my room, despite my telling her 3 times she didn't have to. My aunt, I said. Dr. Kim nodded and made a note. My phone had 42 missed calls, 24 from my mother, 11 from my father, 7 from Derek. I listened to one voicemail from my mother. She was angry. She'd driven to my apartment and I wasn't there. The nurses had told her I'd been discharged. She wanted to know where I was and who this Ruth person was, and why I hadn't called her back, and didn't I understand how worried they'd been. I deleted it without finishing it. Ruth drove me to her rented house in a quiet neighborhood, 20 minutes from the hospital. She'd rented it for a month, she said, when she left Tucson. She'd figured she might be here a while. She'd set up a room for me. A proper medical bed she'd rented. A shower chair, non-slip mats, everything Dr. Kim had recommended, laid out as if she'd read the discharge instructions before I'd received them. How did you know what to get? I asked. I looked it up, she said. When I got in the car, that night my mother called the number Ruth had used to call her to arrange the discharge. I don't know how she got it. Probably the hospital, which had listed Ruth as my contact by then. My mother's voice was cold in a way I'd only heard a few times. I don't know what Ruth has told you, she said, but she has no right to be involved in your life. She never did. She walked away from this family years ago, and now she wants to swoop in and play hero, and you're letting her because you're angry and you're not thinking clearly. She walked away, I said. She made it impossible to maintain a relationship with her. She was always criticizing, always interfering. She offered to pay for my education, I said. And that money didn't reach me. Long pause. That is not what happened. Then what happened? There were complications. It was a difficult time. A difficult time, I said. Derek was in private school. That wasn't a difficult time for his education. You're twisting things. You've always had everything you needed. I've given you $146,000, I said, in 7 years. I kept a spreadsheet. Silence. Derek needs your support right now, she finally said. The distributor deal is moving forward and he needs capital for the next phase of production, and we thought, given your financial situation, maybe $15,000 to start. I want you to listen to what you just said, I told her. I am 5 days out of surgery. I have a fractured pelvis. I can't walk to my own bathroom. And you are calling me to ask for $15,000 for Derek's film. She started to say something. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Ruth was in the doorway. She'd clearly heard enough. "You did it," she said quietly. My legs felt weak, and it wasn't from the pelvis. The next 6 weeks were hard in ways I hadn't predicted, and easier in ways I also hadn't predicted. Hard because recovery is real and unglamorous. Physical therapy 3 times a week. Learning to move without bracing for pain. Nights where I couldn't get comfortable and lay awake tallying the things I'd lost, the savings, the years, the version of myself that had gone to the school in New York, the choices I'd made thinking there was no other way. Easier because for the first time in 7 years I was not waiting for a phone call that would cost me something. I was not calculating how much I could transfer without hitting a balance that scared me. I was not managing Derek's feelings or my mother's anxiety or my father's expectations. Ruth and I talked, really talked. She told me about the Thanksgiving when she'd finally said it out loud, that they were treating me like Derek's financial support system instead of like their daughter, and my mother's face had gone the color of bone. And 2 weeks later, she'd received a letter saying she was no longer welcome at family events. She told me she'd driven past my apartment complex once, years ago, just to know where I was. She told me she'd sent a card for my 30th birthday to my work address. Figured my mother couldn't intercept that, but she didn't know if I'd gotten it. I had gotten it. I'd thought it was from a vendor I couldn't place. I'd thrown it away. We both cried about that one. She asked me, one evening over dinner, what I had actually wanted to do. Not with my career, necessarily, but in general. What had I wanted before capable became the only adjective anyone used for me? I had wanted to write, I said. I used to write all through middle school and into high school. Fiction, mostly. I stopped when my parents decided Derek was the creative one, and I needed to be practical. So Derek got to keep his creative vision, and you gave yours up, she said. When she said it like that, it sounded obvious. She bought me a notebook the next day. Just write whatever, she said, even if it's bad. Especially if it's bad. I wrote about a woman who had been keeping a spreadsheet of everything she'd given away, tallying it in a folder called tax documents, so she wouldn't have to look at it. I wrote about a parking garage view from a hospital window. I wrote about oatmeal chocolate chip cookies left outside a door in the middle of the night. Derek called once 3 weeks in. I saw the number and answered without thinking. He didn't mention the hospital. He didn't ask how I was doing. He launched immediately into the distributor, the next film, the 15,000 our mother had mentioned, and by the way, he was sorry about the surgery, but I understood about the screening, right? Because that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'd always been supportive of his work. I blocked his number without saying anything. My mother texted from a new number 2 days later. She'd figured out I'd blocked her. "You are hurting your brother. He cried when you hung up. He thought you'd always be there for him." I blocked that number too. My father sent a letter to my old apartment. My neighbor, who I'd asked to collect my mail, forwarded it to me. The letter said I was being manipulated by a woman who had a grudge against our family. It said Derek's distributor deal had fallen apart because the project lost momentum when funding stalled. It said this was the consequence of my choices. It said they hoped I would come to my senses before I destroyed all my relationships. I showed it to Ruth. "You're not destroying your relationships," she said. "You're just declining to be an ATM anymore. Those are different things, even though they feel the same for a while." 8 weeks out, Dr. Kim cleared me to drive. Ruth drove me to my old apartment to collect more of my things. There were 9 letters from my parents pushed under the door. A package from Derek that I recognized by the return address. A church bulletin with a note from my mother's pastor about the importance of forgiveness and family reconciliation. I gave notice on the apartment. It was too expensive, too tied to the version of my life where I was managing everything for everyone else. Ruth offered her guest room until I figured out what came next. I took her up on it. What came next turned out to be a smaller apartment 3 miles from my office, with a second bedroom I set up as a writing space. I painted it yellow because I'd always wanted a yellow room and had never lived somewhere I'd stayed long enough to paint. At 12 weeks, I went back to work full-time. My coworkers were genuinely glad to see me. Janet pulled me into her office and told me that my mother had called twice during my leave trying to find out if I'd returned, and that she told her the company couldn't share that information. Then she told me I was being considered for a senior position that would mean better hours and a raise significant enough to matter. I cried in the bathroom. Productive crying. The kind where something actually shifts. 6 months after the accident, I finished the first draft of something. Not a novel exactly, more like a series of connected essays about money and families and the particular exhaustion of being capable. I sent it to a friend who knew someone at a literary agency. She said to send it. Derek found my LinkedIn 18 months out and sent a message. He'd heard from a cousin that I was doing well. He just wanted to say hi. And also, there was a new project, a documentary this time. And if I had any interest in investing at the ground level, now was really the time. I deleted the message and adjusted my privacy settings. My mother showed up at my apartment building at month 16. I watched her on the intercom camera for a moment. She looked smaller than I remembered and older, and I felt something move through me that was complicated and real. Not simple rage or simple grief, but some mixture of the two with love still threaded through it. Because she was still my mother and I was still her daughter, and I had not stopped loving her even though I had stopped letting her take from me. I didn't buzz her in. I called building security and asked them to escort her out. She left a note wedged in the lobby door. I didn't read it for 3 days and then I brought it to my therapist and we read it together. My therapist asked what I felt. I said I felt like I was finally the right size for my own life. Like I'd spent years making myself smaller to make room for everyone else, and now there was just space. Mine. She said that was a good sign. 2 years after the accident, I got a publishing offer. A small but real press. An advance that was not 6 figures but was real money, more than I'd earned from any single month of overtime in my previous life. Ruth cried when I told her. We went to dinner and ordered everything we wanted and stayed until the restaurant started stacking chairs. To your first book, she said. To showing up, I said. Even when you're not sure you have the right. She laughed at that. The kind of laugh that fills up rooms. The book came out the following spring. It did better than the publisher expected. Not a bestseller, but the kind of book that found its readers, and its readers sent me messages that said things like, I thought I was the only one, and I never had a name for what my family did, and I finally said no last week, and I'm terrified and also I feel like I can breathe. I wasn't alone. I had never been alone. I had just been looking in the wrong direction. Derek sent a message when the book coverage started. He'd seen an interview. He was proud of me, he said. Always knew I had it in me. By the way, had I heard that the distributor situation had opened back up, he was putting together a pitch deck and could really use a conversation. I forwarded it to Ruth without comment. She sent back a single emoji. She and I have our own language now, built from 2 years of dinners and physical therapy appointments and late nights when I couldn't sleep and called her anyway. My parents sent a card to my publisher's address, which someone had found online. Congratulations. We're so proud. Can't wait to read it. I didn't send them a copy. I didn't respond. 3 years out, I met someone. He asked about my family on our 3rd date, the way people do, and I told him the honest version, not the softened one I used to tell people. He listened all the way through without interrupting, and then he said, They didn't deserve you. I said, no. But I stopped needing them to know that. He met Ruth at a barbecue she hosted in her backyard. She told him, when she thought I wasn't listening, that I was the best thing that had ever happened to her second act, and that she hoped he understood what he'd stumbled into. He said he was starting to figure it out. She approved. I heard from my father 3.5 years after the accident. He called from a number I didn't recognize, which is why I answered. His voice had changed. Something in it had settled into something quieter. He said my mother was sick. He said it was serious. I felt the weight of that, the way you feel anything true, fully, in your whole body. She was still my mother. The love and the damage were not separate things. I said I was sorry to hear that. I meant it. He said she wanted to see me. I sat with that for a long time. Days. I talked to Ruth, to my therapist, to the man who by then had a key to my apartment and knew about the spreadsheet I'd kept under the label Tax Documents 2023 and had never once made me feel like it was something to be ashamed of. In the end, I didn't go. I sent flowers, no card. It was the most honest thing I could give. She died 6 weeks later. Derek called from a blocked number. She asked for you at the end, he said. You should have been there. Maybe, I said. I'm sorry she's gone. I hope she had peace. He started to say something else. I ended the call. Ruth and I drove out to the coast that weekend, a place she'd always wanted to go. We walked on the beach for a long time without saying much. The water was gray and cold and very beautiful. She'd showed up for me, I said at the end. In her way, she loved me even if she didn't know how to love me right. Ruth put her arm around my shoulders. That's the most generous thing you've ever said, she told me. It's the truest thing, I said. We stood there until the light started to go. Then we drove back, made soup, sat at her kitchen table, and talked about nothing, about everything. About the book I was already starting to outline, the second one, about her friend's garden. About what I was going to do with the yellow room when my lease was up. Family, I have learned, is not the people who are supposed to show up. It is the people who do. Ruth drove 12 hours through the night because she couldn't not. Janet sat with me until I woke up from surgery. Ren came back on her own time to show me footage on a tablet because she thought I deserved to know. My brother called once more 2 months ago. New project. Ground level. Just a conversation. I didn't pick up. I have a good life now. I have dinner with Ruth on Sundays. I have a writing space painted yellow and a person who makes coffee before I wake up, and a second book due in the spring. I have money in an account that I have never once moved to cover someone else's rent, or fund someone else's vision, or smooth over someone else's life. I have, finally, enough left over to spend on myself. It took a fractured pelvis and a 12-hour drive from a woman I barely remembered to teach me that. I'm still learning. But I'm learning it as myself now, not as someone else's capable one. Not as the responsible one. Not as the one who can handle it. Just as me. It turns out that's enough. I used to think being dependable was a virtue. I think it still is, honestly. But there's a version of dependable that isn't a virtue at all. It's just a role you got assigned so young you forgot it was assigned and started thinking it was who you were. That's the version I lived for most of my adult life. The capable one. The responsible one. The one who could handle it. What I know now is that every time I transferred money to cover Derek's rent or his equipment or his launch expenses, I was reinforcing something. Not generosity. Not love, exactly. I was reinforcing the idea that my needs came last, that my stability was a resource to be drawn from, that saying yes was the cost of being loved by my family. And because I kept paying that cost, they never had to question it. Why would they? The system worked fine for everyone except me. Ruth drove 12 hours through the night because she couldn't stay home knowing I was alone. My parents, 4 hours away, stayed for brunch. That's not bad luck or bad timing. That's a value system showing itself clearly. Actions don't lie the way words do. What people do when it costs them something tells you exactly who they are. I spent a long time being angry about the education money, about the school in New York I didn't go to because I was told there wasn't enough. That anger was real and it was earned. But somewhere in the second year of recovery, I started to understand that the anger wasn't the most useful thing I had. What was more useful was the clarity. I finally saw the whole picture. Not just one moment of being let down, but the entire shape of it, stretching back years. Once you see the whole shape, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you have a choice. I chose to stop. Not out of rage, not as punishment, but because I finally understood that continuing was its own kind of dishonesty. Pretending the relationship was something it wasn't. Pretending I was fine with terms I had never actually agreed to. The most honest thing I ever did for my family was stop lying to all of us about what was happening. Ren showed me that footage because she thought I deserved to know someone was there. That's a small act of integrity from a person who had no obligation to me at all. Janet sat with me before surgery because she decided to. Not because it was her job. These people taught me more about what I actually wanted from relationships than 20 years of trying to earn my family's equal attention ever did. The life I have now. The yellow room, the writing, Ruth's Sunday dinners, the person who makes coffee before I wake up, none of it came from being rescued. It came from one decision, made badly and painfully and with shaking hands, to stop accepting less than I was worth. Everything else followed from that. Not immediately, not cleanly, but steadily. That's the thing about deciding to take up the space that's actually yours. The world doesn't rearrange itself overnight, but it does rearrange. It just needs you to stop moving out of the way first.